I decided to make pasta with a homemade cream sauce. Please enjoy it while it's still warm, I said as I served the dish. However, something was off. Food had a terrible smell. I hesitated to take a bite. Why aren't you eating? Don't you like my cooking? Holly, my daughter-in-law, asked sharply. Her tone made it seem like I was being difficult on purpose. When Holly got up from the table, I quietly swapped my plate with my son Aidan's. I hoped my suspicion was just my imagination. Aidan didn't notice the switch and took a big bite, but moments later, he collapsed, foaming at the mouth. Aidan, what's wrong? What happened? I cried out. Holly looked stunned but didn't seem genuinely confused. That's when heat mesh had tampered with my plate on purpose. Let me back up. My name is Susan, and I'm 62 years old. After Aidan got married, our once busy home grew quiet with just me and my husband. I missed the lively chatter. One day, during a conversation about his married life, Aidan hesitated before saying, "Ma'am, the truth is, my wife's cooking isn't very good." At first, I scolded him. "You should be thankful she cooks for you." "I know," he said, "but it's really hard to eat." This was odd because Aidan was never a picky eater. Even as an adult, he loved food. Something about his complaint felt serious. To support him, I said, "Why don't you and Holly come over for dinner sometime?" Aidan's face lit up. "Really? Thank you, ma'am." A few days later, Aidan and Holly joined us for dinner. It was a pleasant evening. "Holly, I hope you like the food," I said. "It's delicious," she replied. "Aidan always says how great your cooking is. I'm jealous he has such a skilled mom," she added with a smile. Her words made me happy, but little did I know the shocking behavior she was capable of. Holly smiled and said, "I also made something for you as a gift." She placed a large container in the center of the table. "Holly, what did you make for us?" I asked. "It's a French dish called quiche. Don't you know it?" she replied confidently. She opened the container, and we were immediately hit by a terrible smell. Inside was something that looked like a mix between an omelette and a pie. The surface was burned, and the inside was a gooey, undercooked dough with a strong fishy smell. I couldn't help but grimace. "You just mix the dough and bake it. It's super easy to make," Holly explained. "Is that so?" I said cautiously. "Should we reheat it, then?" "It's delicious even cold, so it's fine," Holly said firmly. Feeling obligated, I hesitantly picked up my chopsticks and tried a piece. The dough was powdery and clearly not mixed properly. My husband silently set down his chopsticks without even tasting it, and Aidan stayed quiet, not touching his food either. Oddly enough, Holly didn't eat any of it herself. "Aren't you going to eat it, mother-in-law?" Holly asked. "I'm sorry," I said gently, "but it feels a bit undercooked. Maybe we could reheat it first." Holly frowned at my response. I was trying to be polite, but she clearly wasn't happy. "Never mind," she snapped, slamming the container onto the table. "I didn't think I'd be treated like this just for bringing a dish. Do you think you're better than me just because you're good at cooking?" "Holly, calm down," Aidan said, before complaining to Mom. "Don't you think you should at least try your own cooking?" "I don't need to taste it," she said defiantly. "It's easy to make, so I already know it's good." We sat there in awkward silence, unsure how to respond. It was clear the tension in the room wasn't just about the food. "Why aren't you eating it either? How can you serve food without tasting it yourself? Just try it," I said. I didn't mean to sound harsh, but my words came out wrong. Holly became furious, laughing bitterly. Aidan quickly apologized to me and went after her, left in the now quiet dining room. I held my head in my hands. "At this rate, she's going to think I'm out to get her," I said with a sigh. I looked at my husband, feeling unsure about what to do. I wasn't trying to show off my cooking skills. I'm just an average cook, and all I wanted was for us to get along. I wondered how to handle the situation without hurting Holly's feelings or Aidan's pride. After discussing it with my husband, we decided it was best not to interface too much in their household. But then something unexpected happened. Holly started visiting our house more often. "Mother-in-law, Could you please make lunch for me, and also pack some dinner for Aiden to take home? She asked one day. The next day, she came again, this time without Aiden. She spread out a bunch of empty containers and said, "Can you make lunch and dinner for us?" Surprised by her sudden request, I asked, "Is everything okay? Did something happen?" "Aiden seems to prefer your cooking," Holly said bluntly, "so I thought I'd ask you to make our meals from now on." "That's not really fair to you, Holly," I replied gently. "How about we cook together instead?" "No," she snapped. "You just make that disgusted face again and act like I'm terrible. You're always giving me a hard time." Her words left me speechless. I didn't know how to respond to her harsh accusation. Even when I tried to explain that I didn't mean any harm, Holly wouldn't listen. She had already decided that I was a terrible mother-in-law. Cooking for her wasn't too much trouble at first, but it became unbearable to do it every day for someone who clearly didn't like me. I thought about teaching her some simple recipes, but she refused to learn. "You're good at cooking, so just do it for us," she said, "and make sure tomorrow's meal is ready too." No matter how much I tried to reason with her, she only became more demanding. On the days I refused, she would buy prepared meals from the store. Aiden didn't seem to mind and ate them without complaint. But then Holly started to criticize him for eating at our house. "Aiden's spoiled by you, isn't he? He just gobbles up store-bought food," she said angrily. "He barely touches my cooking, though he's trying to hurt my feelings." "Well, I don't think that's it," I said cautiously. Despite her complaints, Holly began coming to our house almost every day for lunch and to collect dinner for Aiden. Eventually, she even demanded that I make Aiden's lunch and deliver it to their house in the mornings. Feeling overwhelmed, I talked to Aiden about the situation. Instead of addressing the issue with Holly, he started giving me money for the meals. "If you're going to spend money, why not use it to help Holly learn to cook?" I suggested. But Holly wouldn't listen to that idea either, saying it hurt her feelings. Things escalated when Holly discovered that Aiden had been giving me money. "Why are you paying your mother? Is this some kind of allowance? You never told me about it," she shouted. "It's because you're making her cook for us," Aiden replied calmly. "What's wrong with paying for the food we eat?" "It's because you don't eat my cooking. What else am I supposed to do?" Holly shot back. We tried several times to talk things over with her, but no matter how much we explained, Holly refused to change her attitude. The tension only grew worse. Holly wouldn't listen to us and insisted that not eating her cooking was a form of harassment, saying we were getting up on her to make her feel bad. Eventually, I decided to stop cooking for her and Aiden altogether. That seemed to settle things for a while, even though Holly still wasn't happy about it. I didn't want to get involved anymore, so I told them to work it out on their own. A couple of weeks later, Holly came to our house again one quiet afternoon. I felt tense as I greeted her at the door, but this time, Aiden was with her. "I want you to teach me how to cook," Holly said suddenly. I was surprised but relieved. She finally seemed willing to find a solution. "Of course, I'd be happy to help," I said, feeling hopeful as I led them to the kitchen. Holly had brought her own ingredients and looked more determined than before. However, when I tried to help her, she quickly told me to leave the kitchen. "I can't concentrate if someone's watching me," she said firmly, also kicking Aiden out of the kitchen. Confused, Aiden and I exchanged worried looks but decided to wait in the living room. After just a few minutes, Holly called us back. She proudly served pasta with a cream sauce. It didn't look bad this time, but it felt like she hadn't spent enough time actually cooking it. "Please, try it while it's warm," Holly said, stopping me when I tried to go check the kitchen. Reluctantly, I picked up my fork and began mixing the pasta. That's when I noticed something unusual in the sauce, small bits of something that looked like residue from a cleaning product. The sauce also had a strange scent, like air freshener. Next to me, Aiden hesitated but took a bite anyway. "This is delicious," he said, looking surprised. He seemed genuinely impressed. "Wow, Holly, you really learned how to cook something this good." Holly smiled proudly. "I always cook properly. Even my mother-in-law can't say anything bad about this now, right? I looked at her, unsure what to say, while still worried about the strange smell in the dish. Eden, it's just normal pasta, it's fine, I reassured myself. Usually, Holly would get angry and yell if Eden said something rude, but this time, she didn't seem to care. Instead, she kept urging me to eat quickly. But the more I mixed the pasta, the stronger the strange smell became, making me hesitate. Why won't you eat it? Are you just trying to mess with me? Holly asked sharply. That's not true, it's just that I started. But before I could finish, Holly's phone rang. She quickly grabbed her bag and left the room to take the call. Taking the opportunity, I whispered to Eden, "Can't you switch the pasta with mine, just to check?" Eden nodded and happily started eating it as a second serving, but moments later, he suddenly fell backward, collapsing onto the floor, foam coming from his mouth. I screamed in panic. What happened? Why did Eden collapse? Hearing my shout, Holly rushed back into the room. She looked alarmed as she knelt by Eden. "What's going on? What happened to Eden?" she asked, visibly confused. While I called for an ambulance, Holly kept pacing and muttering. Eden was rushed to the hospital, where doctors managed to stabilize him after pumping his stomach. My husband and I, who had joined him there, sighed in relief when we saw Eden resting in a hospital bed. But Holly didn't seem as concerned about Eden's condition. Instead, she blurted out, "Why did Eden collapse? How come it wasn't you?" "Holly, calm down. What are you talking about?" my husband demanded. "It should have been you," she shouted, glaring at me. "Did you force Eden to eat it?" "Holly, what on earth are you saying? What did you do?" I asked, horrified. Holly looked at me angrily and said something shocking. "You've always insulted my cooking. I just wanted to get back at you." "Get back at me? What are you saying, Holly?" "It's your fault. Eden doesn't eat my food. He's always on your side." I stared at her in disbelief. Neither Eden nor I had meant to hurt her feelings, but it seemed she had misunderstood our actions. "Yes, you did hurt me," Holly continued, her voice trembling with anger. "I thought everything would be easier if you weren't around anymore." It became clear that Holly had put something dangerous in the pasta, intending to harm me. Holly served me the pasta, and the white residue in the sauce turned out to be detergent. Thankfully, no serious harm was done, but things could have been much worse. Eden could have ended up in critical condition. I couldn't understand how Eden didn't notice the strong smell, but this had gone far beyond a simple issue of bad cooking. "Holly, if you think it would be better if I weren't around, all you needed to do was try harder at cooking," I said. "But if you were still alive, Eden would always be on your side, wouldn't he?" Holly replied coldly. Her unapologetic and dismissive attitude left me deeply disappointed. My husband, sitting beside me, shook his head in frustration at her childish behavior. She didn't seem to grasp the seriousness of her actions. "That's enough, Holly," he said firmly. "We need to talk to your parents about this." "What? Why?" Holly protested. "My parents have nothing to do with this. We're involving them because talking to you is getting us nowhere," he replied. After Eden recovered and was discharged from the hospital, we arranged a meeting with Holly's parents. Although she resisted, I explained the situation to them beforehand, and they agreed to sit down with us. "I deeply apologize for the trouble our daughter has caused you," Holly's mother, Kate, said sincerely. "Oh, no, it's my mother-in-law who should apologize," Holly interjected defiantly. "Enough," Kate snapped, glaring at her daughter and making her bow her head. Kate's strict attitude surprised me and made me wonder why Holly behaved this way. "We'll cover the medical expenses," Kate offered. "If there's anything else we can do to make amends, please let us know." "Stop it, I'm not paying anything," Holly shouted. "Holly," Kate said firmly, "can't you explain why you did this?" "It's because Eden only ever takes her side," Holly said, doubling down on her claim that I had somehow provoked Eden to mock her cooking. She refused to take responsibility and blamed me for everything, even the fact that I had been cooking for them. I couldn't stand her attitude any longer, so I showed Kate a photo I had taken. What's this? Kate asked, confused. This is a dish Holly brought to our house. She called it quiche, I explained. Kate's face turned pale. You served something like this to someone else? She asked Holly angrily. As Kate trembled with frustration, she began scolding Holly harshly. Holly tried to make excuses, but Kate wouldn't let her off the hook. In the end, Holly admitted everything. She confessed that she was afraid Aiden would always side with me, and that she would end up having to take care of me in the future. Holly believed that if she could get me hospitalized, she wouldn't have to take care of me. Her absurd logic left me completely stunned. I'm sorry, but I can't stay married to you after something like this, Aiden said firmly. What? Why not? It's not my fault. You shouldn't have taken your mother's side, Holly snapped back. Enough, my husband intervened. You could be reported to the police for what you've done. The mention of the police made Holly turn pale. While there was some back and forth about covering compensation and hospital fees, Kate promised to ensure Holly would pay, and the matter didn't escalate further. For a while, Holly acted stubborn and childish, but after Aiden told her, I can't stay with you anymore, she seemed to feel defeated. Later, I found out that Holly's parents, whom she claimed to not get along with, were actually professional chefs. Holly had wanted to cook her own way, but her parents severely criticized her for her unconventional methods after getting married. She started cooking however she wanted, free from their scrutiny. When her parents heard about what she had done, they were furious, especially her father, who didn't attend our discussion. He was said to be so angry that he decided to take Holly back home for what they called bridal training, where she was being taught the basics of proper cooking. This situation made me realize I needed to teach Aiden how to handle basic household chores too. Grateful for everything I had done, Aiden started learning how to cook simple dishes. He even asked me to teach him more, and now he sometimes comes over to cook meals with me. Surprisingly, my husband also developed an interest in cooking. The three of us now enjoy cooking together, and sometimes I let them handle the kitchen, while I relax and enjoy their efforts.